The CFO and HR director ambushed me before lunch. Due to restructuring, your position is being eliminated, they said with blank faces, as if I hadn't given 19 years of my life to this company. Security will watch you pack up. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, or if life has ever tested your kindness, this story is for you. Then follow up with, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and let's dive in. I looked at them. Sandra, the HR director, couldn't even meet my eyes. Mark, the CFO, had his hands folded like he was bored already. I didn't ask why. I didn't scream. I simply nodded, signed the paper without reading it, and walked out. What they didn't know was that I had already emptied my desk 3 weeks ago. The divorce papers were still in my bag. I hadn't even opened them yet. They were served to me on base a week before I returned from my final military deployment. A cold envelope handed to me between a briefing and a battlefield. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe a misunderstanding. But when I came home early, 2 weeks ahead of schedule to surprise her, my key didn't fit the lock. The locks had been changed. Inside, through the living room window, I saw a man sitting where I used to sit. He wore my old hoodie, had his arm around her waist, and laughed with the dog I raised since it was a pup. The same dog didn't bark when I stood outside. My wife, ex-wife now I guess, had drained the joint account before I even landed, left me with nothing but a legal notice, an empty house, and an aching silence that followed me everywhere. I should have felt broken. Maybe I did. But it never showed. I responded the same way I did today. Calm, quiet, almost too calm. Just one word. Understood. I stopped sleeping in that house 2 months before she ever filed. Something in her eyes had already changed. The laughter was shorter, the hugs colder, and my uniform was no longer met with pride, just indifference. So I started preparing, not just for war, but for what was coming after it. I moved everything important to a private storage unit, made a second account, documented every single transaction, and then I waited for people to show me who they really were. Sandra once invited me to her daughter's piano recital. Now, she won't even offer me eye contact while firing me. Mark borrowed 10 grand from me when his wife had cancer. Today, he dismissed me like I was a line item in a spreadsheet. I walked past security, who looked more uncomfortable than I did. No one said a word. I didn't expect them to. I left with a single duffel bag, just like the one I carried in the Army. But this time, I wasn't walking into a battlefield. I was walking away from one, and no one, not Mark, not Sandra, not even my ex-wife, knew what I had quietly built while they were busy taking everything away from me. I didn't go home after they fired me. I went to Locker 107. It was a storage unit tucked behind an abandoned warehouse, far from the city, where no one would think twice about a beat-up sedan pulling in and out at strange hours. Inside were 27 black binders, each labeled, dated, and filled with things I was never supposed to know. You see, while Mark and Sandra were busy climbing the corporate ladder, I was the one who built the software they were climbing on. I had access to everything: the payroll loopholes, the bonuses funneled to offshore accounts, the ghost employees that didn't exist except on paper, pulling in six-figure salaries, all approved by Mark, all HR signed by Sandra. I started collecting data 2 years ago, not for revenge, at least not at first. I just didn't trust how the company shifted after the merger. They started treating people like furniture. One day you're the desk lamp, next day you're in the trash. So I documented everything. When I built the internal analytics system, I installed a hidden mirror server. Every approval, every internal message, every expense report, they thought they were deleting it. They weren't. They forgot who gave them the tools. I backed it all up on a cold drive. No internet access, no cloud, just raw physical evidence. But I didn't just collect documents, I collected habits. Mark always forwarded confidential documents to his personal Gmail before quarterly board meetings. Sandra always deleted emails at 2:17 p.m. every Friday, right after her weekly call with a mysterious contact listed as MROSE in her phone, a contact I traced to a competitor company in Austin. They thought they were smart. They forgot that silence watches more closely than words ever can. While they were celebrating Christmas bonuses, I was cross-referencing spreadsheet metadata. While they were clinking glasses at company retreats, I was decrypting message logs and quietly emailing anonymized reports to an account no one knew existed. And that day, the day they fired me, I didn't leave empty-handed. In my duffel bag, it was addressed to the board of directors, with one sentence written in clean black ink: "If I disappear, this is only the beginning." But I wasn't going to disappear. I had waited too long for this. And the best part? They still had no idea what I was really doing when I smiled, signed that termination letter, and walked away without a fight. Little did they know. The first email went out at midnight, not from me directly, of course. That would be too obvious. It came from an anonymous account tied to an untraceable VPN, routed through 6 countries and bouncing off 3 dark web relays before it reached its destination. The recipients? 7 board members, 2 legal consultants, and 1 investigative journalist who'd once tried to expose this company, only to be blacklisted after Sandra handled it internally. Attached were 3 files: a PDF of forged employee signatures used to authorize illegal expense write-offs, a full chain of internal emails showing Mark personally signing off on unapproved bonuses to shell companies, a 19-minute audio recording of Sandra threatening to blacklist an employee who questioned discrepancies in the retirement fund. But that wasn't the only thing that triggered alarms. The email ended with a short, quiet line: "Ask them why they buried Report 47C before the merger." The numbers never lied. Neither did I. That phrase would haunt them, because only 2 people ever saw Report 47C, Mark and me. It was the financial projection I had compiled 3 years ago, warning that the merger with TerraVolt Inc. would lead to mass layoffs, asset stripping, and legal exposure. They ignored it. Then they deleted it. Then they pretended it never existed. But I had it. With metadata, with timestamps, with proof. By sunrise, I had 6 missed calls. Not on my main phone, the one I left on the company desk that day. On the backup phone, the one tied to no name, no records. At 6:42 a.m., Sandra called. She didn't leave a voicemail. At 6:57 a.m., Mark texted me, "Let's talk, please." But I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Because they weren't the only ones who'd betrayed me. My ex-wife had started posting soft launch photos of her new life on Instagram: new condo, new dog, a glimpse of a man's hand, just enough to spark curiosity, not enough to draw attention. But the man she was with, he used to work for TerraVolt Incorporated. He was one of the consultants who pushed for the merger that made Mark rich and me disposable. Coincidence, or something deeper? I had questions, so I started digging. Cross-referenced his name with old meeting records, traced travel patterns, found a photo, grainy but clear enough, of him, Mark, and Sandra at a private dinner 6 months before my firing. That's when the puzzle started to make sense. I wasn't fired because of restructuring. I was removed, surgically, systematically, silently, because I knew too much. And now, they were about to learn what it feels like to lose control over a game they thought they were winning, because every move they made from now on was already 3 moves behind me. By noon, the company's silence was breaking down. The journalist I'd tipped off had already published the headline: "Insider exposes corporate fraud in TerraVolt merger, millions in embezzled funds, hidden reports, and suppressed whistleblower warnings." It spread like wildfire. Picked up by financial blogs, retweeted by former employees, even flagged by a watchdog agency by sunset. The board couldn't ignore it anymore. That afternoon, I watched a live stream of Mark standing at a podium, sweaty and pale, claiming this was a coordinated misinformation attack by a disgruntled former employee. He never said my name, but I heard it in every word. Sandra didn't show up to the press conference. Smart. She was already busy, trying to erase years of digital fingerprints. Too late. Each attempt she made triggered a silent alert on my end. Each deletion attempt only led her deeper into a trap. Because months ago, I had copied all the sensitive data onto a read-only blockchain ledger, time-stamped, sealed, and immune to deletion. Every time she tried to erase something, it only made the evidence stronger. Meanwhile, I moved like a ghost, I changed cities, checked into a motel under a false name, the kind of place where no one asked questions if you paid in cash and didn't stay long enough to make the sheets familiar. I spent my evenings building a file on the man my ex-wife left me for. Ethan Grant, a name as manufactured as his fake smile. Turns out, he wasn't just a merger consultant. He was one of the architects behind the buyout strategy that funneled employee retirement funds into shell firms. His specialty? Convincing internal staff, like my wife, to push for internal restructuring, sell off ethical assets, and replace long-timers like me with short-term contract workers. Cheaper, quieter, disposable. She was part of it. She sold me out before I ever stepped off the battlefield. Maybe that's why she changed the locks before I got home. Maybe that's why she smiled when the company gave her a bonus just weeks after filing for divorce. And maybe that's why I didn't feel heartbreak anymore. Just calculation. Because I now had everything I needed. A trail of money, screenshots, a confidential email she sent to Sandra, subject line, "He won't see it coming." I laughed when I read that, because I already had. And now, the game was no longer about justice. It was about precision, about hitting where it hurts the most, without ever being seen. That night, I scheduled 10 encrypted emails to be delivered at specific times across the next 2 weeks, each one revealing a new layer of fraud, each one signed, "The one you tried to erase." And still, they had no idea who they were dealing with, no idea how many others they'd wronged who were silently watching, waiting. Because when wolves go quiet, it's not peace, it's preparation. 2 weeks later, I sat alone on the edge of a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the kind of view you earn, not buy, the kind of silence that doesn't scare you anymore because you've already survived the loudest heartbreaks. Behind me, the world was still burning. Mark had resigned under health reasons. His statement was vague. His face was pale. But the resignation came one day after the IRS got an anonymous package with names, wire transfers, and hand-signed approvals. Sandra vanished from LinkedIn. Some said she fled the country. Others said she was cooperating with investigators for a lighter sentence. I didn't care either way. My part was done. But what they never saw coming wasn't the data leaks. It was what came after. The letter. I sent it to my ex-wife on a Tuesday. No threats, no anger, just 3 sentences. You chose a team. That team collapsed. And all I ever did was stand in the fire you lit. I never expected a reply, but I got one. She wrote, "I didn't know what they were really doing. I just thought I deserved better than waiting on a man who was always at war." I stared at that line for a long time. Then I deleted it, because she was right. I was always at war, but not anymore. In the ashes of everything, I built something better. Not louder, not richer, just cleaner. I partnered with a nonprofit, helped former whistleblowers recover their lives, started giving anonymous workshops under a different name. People listened, not because I was a hero, but because I was proof that surviving betrayal doesn't mean becoming bitter. It means becoming better at not letting it happen again. And yet, not everything heals so easily. I still see her sometimes, in the shadow of a passerby, in the reflection of a cafe window. The woman who once called me her soldier. The woman who left before the real war even started. But I don't hate her anymore. I just understand her now. People run when they're afraid. Some run toward comfort. Others run toward silence. Me, I walked straight through the fire. And when I came out the other side, I didn't need revenge. I was the revenge, because the best revenge is not destroying others. It's becoming untouchable. In a world that tried to break you. I folded up the last letter, dropped it into the wind, watched it fly over the ocean like a secret finally released. And as I turned to leave, I smiled, because little did they know, they made me unstoppable. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And if you've ever faced betrayal or unexpected twists, let us know in the comments how you overcame it. Stay tuned for more emotional journeys like this one.